former Washington football team first-round pick Dwayne Haskins was signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers to a one-year deal. And this was very interesting. I think mostly this was interesting because it told me that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not planning on drafting a quarterback in this year's draft. That is very odd to me, considering the only weakness I felt like from the Steelers, other than perhaps dropping passes, was the quarterback position. Ben Roethlisberger down the stretch was poor. He was very bad. He was not good in their playoff game against the Cleveland Browns. He threw 4 interceptions. I think you can make an argument that Big Ben was the main reason why they lost that playoff game. Now, he threw for a bajillion yards, but when you're down a bajillion points, you throw for a bajillion yards trying to get back into it. He was not very good down the stretch, and their offense overall was not very good down the stretch. The first 11 games of the season, they were rolling, they were humming, they were doing pretty solid, but towards the end of the year, they weren't very good. And I think we've seen that with some other aging quarterbacks as well. We've seen Drew Brees the past couple of years starting to fade towards the end of the season. Maybe his arm just doesn't have that same whip to it that it would have at the beginning of a season off of an off season. Big Ben, to me, is not an answer even next year for the Steelers. I think that they need a long-term option in that building, and I think they feel that perhaps they have addressed that with the signing of Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins was a former first-round pick just 3 years ago now, of the Washington football team coming out of Ohio State. He had thrown for 5,000 yards in his one season starting at Ohio State, and he seemed like he has the measurables of a quarterback in the NFL. He's big, he's strong, he's got a cannon of an arm. He had the physical tools that says, okay, this kid could be a great starting quarterback in the NFL. There was one slight problem, though, with Dwayne Haskins. He has not shown an ability to work like an NFL quarterback. Dwayne Haskins has had several issues over the past couple of years. Namely, this year, he had many COVID breaches, COVID issues where he'd be caught in public not wearing a mask, and he would have to be out and quarantine, and that's not a good look from your starting quarterback. You want your starting quarterback to be businesslike. You want them to be focused on the game of football. You don't want them to worry about things outside of the football field. Dwayne Haskins showed an inability to do that, and when he did play, he looked incredibly unprepared and was not showing the poise that you would want out of a first-round quarterback. I think the best example of this was after Dwayne Haskins was released by the Washington football team this past year, they started Taylor Heinicke at quarterback in their playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Taylor Heinicke looked better in that one game than Dwayne Haskins did at any point in his 2-year stint with the Washington football team. And I think that's a massive indictment on Dwayne Haskins, as, you know, that's a terrible look when an undrafted quarterback who couldn't even start in the XFL looks better than a first-round pick at quarterback. It shows that Dwayne Haskins was never fully prepared. He was always underprepared, and it showed that he didn't have the mentality to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He seems like a B-level Jamarcus Russell to me so far from what I've seen from his first couple of years in the NFL. He's got the physical traits, but he's never shown the ability to work and be prepared to be the starting quarterback in the NFL. It'll be interesting to see how he does in Pittsburgh, because he's not going to get any help from Ben Roethlisberger. It's been noted that Big Ben is not interested in helping his backup quarterbacks. He's not worried about them. They don't exist in his world. He's worried about himself and what he is going to do on Sunday, and he's been known to not give tips or pointers to his backups. And frankly, it's not his prerogative to do so, but he had that. Dwayne Haskins had that in Washington with Alex Smith, who helped Patrick Mahomes when he was in Kansas City, and I would assume also did the same thing with Dwayne Haskins in Washington. So Dwayne Haskins is not going to get that help, that tutoring that he would have gotten in Washington, and he's going to have to be prepared. Backup quarterbacks get cut when they're not prepared. Their job isn't to start on Sundays necessarily unless a quarterback is hurt. Their job is to prepare the starter to be good to go on Sundays. Their job is to study film to know exactly what the other team that coming Sunday is going to present to your offense. They got to drill the starting quarterback. Their job is to be prepared to help the starter be prepared on Sundays. And that was the one thing that Dwayne Haskins showed he was not able to do when he was in Washington. That said, he is going to Pittsburgh, which is a very interesting situation for Dwayne Haskins. He's not going to get the help that he would have gotten in Washington, I don't think, but he's going to an organization that might have patience with him. And it could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing. He's going to at least be on that roster all of next season, which is perhaps something that would not have happened had he gone to a different organization. But also, I don't think he's going to get the tutoring or the patience that he would have gotten in Washington because he was a first-round pick in Washington. And even then, he only lasted 2 years, which is unheard of for a first-round pick at quarterback. He did tweet something out 2 days ago, Dwayne Haskins did, which I found very interesting and I think is the correct mentality that Dwayne needs to adopt going forward. He needs to adopt that resurgent workman type of mantra going forward. He's going to have to redeem his image, but he's also going to have to regain the trust of the National Football League. The NFL has no trust in Dwayne Haskins. We saw that when he cleared waivers. If there was something that another NFL team thought, we need this guy, he wouldn't have cleared waivers, but he did. This perhaps could be his last opportunity to be a quarterback in the NFL. But what he tweeted was 3 in the Bible, talking about his new number. He's going to wear number 3 in Pittsburgh. He says 3 in the Bible stands for restoration and eternal life. Let's work. Now that's very interesting to me because Dwayne has shown contrition after he was cut by Washington, and he said that he needs to turn his life around, which is that's exactly what you want to hear. But what remains to be seen is it true for Dwayne? Is that actually what he believes?